Welcome to episode 177, Mastering Meal Prep and Big Changes. If you've been with us for some time, you know that we continue to iterate and evolve the podcast. And this episode marks another evolution point. For some time, I've had a vision stuck in my head that I just can't shake. As you know, it's my life's mission to help millions of people transform their lives. Now, I've always been a big fan of magazines. When I was younger, I loved picking up magazines and reading through them to get the latest information about my favorite topics or just to laugh at the funny cartoons. Back in the days, it was Sports Illustrated, Mad Magazine, and nowadays it's The Rake, The Economist, and a variety of business and finance related magazines. The excitement of the articles and the freshness of the information has always filled me with great anticipation. The other day, as I sat on my back patio reading one of my favorite magazines, it hit me. It's time. It's time for the next iteration of The Evolved Man. It's time for the podcast to turn into a video magazine. Now, to understand what and why we're changing, I got to take you back a few years. When I was in my mid 20s, I got an award from an industry magazine and organization as a National Personal Trainer of the Year. That award led to interviews on TV and radio. And after my first interview, my wife asked me how it went. Great, I responded, but there's one problem. What's that? She asked. I want to be the one asking the questions. I want to learn from others. So I started a journey of getting my own radio show. In fact, I set a goal to have my own show by the time I turned 30 years old. And about 2 months before my 30th birthday, Steve Cutler and The Fitness Truth went live on AM 570 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Horrible name, I know, but it was fun. After doing that show for a couple of years, I got a transfer with the company I was working with, and we moved the family to Cincinnati. It was a different time, and the ability to do the show remote just wasn't an option, so I had to give it up. In 2020, I started the Evolve podcast with a couple of friends. I've iterated a few times now, and the Evolved Man podcast is what you see and hear today. So, why change again? Why iterate and update? Well, my ultimate vision of the podcast has always been to align with my life's mission to help transform millions of people's lives. And I've learned over the years that the more I do things my way, the more I enjoy the process, I can bring a sense of authenticity to the movement that we want to create. I'm currently on a mission to transform over 100,000 leaders into evolved men through my coaching and over 1 million people through the podcast, newsletter, and do it yourself programs within the next 5 years. I believe that shifting the focus, we will be able to provide more content and more value to more people. So, the Evolved Man podcast will now become an online video magazine. As you pull up the YouTube video or just listen to us on your favorite podcast app, you'll find sections that you can jump to, or you can just listen all the way through. While some of these sections will change from time to time, most of the episodes or issues that you'll see will have the following segments. First is Founder's Notes. This is where I'll give you a breakdown of the topics and some commentary around the areas that we'll convey here. Second, The Evolved Man. This is new profile section where we'll be adding to the podcast and the magazine to highlight people, some you know and some you don't, who are inspirations of evolution. The next section is called Ever Evolving. Now, this is a practical portion of the podcast where I break down the process that it takes to truly evolve. What can we learn and apply right now to push into a higher form of self? Expect to learn practical tools, tips, and tricks in this particular area that you can go start on right now. In evidence based, it's been shocking to me, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, to see how the spread of fear and misinformation is pervasive in the health and fitness industry. So, in this section, we'll be breaking down evidence based information to debunk the fitness fear mongers that are all too prevalent on social media. And finally, the cover story. As you've seen and heard, we've been fortunate to introduce you to experts in the field of nutrition, fitness, life change, culture, style, and all things an evolved man needs to know. We'll continue to interview fascinating people and get their perspectives and have them share their knowledge and experience with you. So, whether episode 177 is your first or whether this is your 177th episode with us, welcome. I'm excited to introduce you to the next iteration of the Evolved Man. In the Evolved Man section today, in this episode, we introduce you to a dyslexic with ADHD whose grit and determination helped him become one of history's most respected leaders. In Ever Evolving, you'll learn the one thought process that you need to eradicate if you want to have lasting success in the fat loss game. In Evidence Based, you'll gain some insight into the most important thing you can do to improve your immune system and reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Our cover story today is my interview with Chef Bryan Curley, whose newsletter and premium newsletter teach you how to take the guesswork out of meal prep. Bryan is an educated, passionate, and opinionated chef who believes in taking personal accountability for your health and fitness and will guide you on the path to improving your health through improving your weekly meal prep. Once again, welcome, and thank you for joining us on the journey of becoming an evolved man. And hey, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you to commit to something. If you find value in what we're putting out, please share it with your family, friends, and network. Liking, commenting, and sharing is the fastest way we grow. And hey, you never know. As we grow, because of your shares, you may be helping someone else who needs to hear the messages that we put out. Now let's go disrupt. The Evolved Man. Did you know that an ADHD dyslexic who suffered from depression was voted the greatest Briton by the people of the United Kingdom? Recently, I watched Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. After watching it, I dove into the actual story and was once again struck by the grit and determination that Winston Churchill exhibited as a leader. Here are three things we can learn from the life of Winston Churchill. Sent off to a boarding school and rarely visited by his parents, young Churchill was described as a negligent, slovenly, and perpetually late young man. He was easily distracted and suffered from a lisp. Once, in an effort to reconnect with his parents, Churchill traveled home for the holiday only to find that his parents had left on vacation without him. Alone and ostracized, Churchill was, quote, on the whole, considerably discouraged by my school days. It was not pleasant to feel so completely outclassed and left behind. So, how did this once disruptive child achieve despite difficulty? Three things: creativity, reality, and grit. Churchill found that through creative practices like painting and writing, he had an outlet of expression that focused his mind and gave him a space to think and escape the challenges of life. Second, realist. Churchill was nothing if not a realist. Early on, he warned people of his party and his country and the Allied nations about the growing threats. Ignored at first, he showed that what many believe was his greatest quality, grit. He stayed the course. After being kicked out of his own party, he continued to passionately pursue what he thought was right. He handled challenges with focus and intention. He embodied his greatest quote: when you are going through hell, keep going. The greatest Britain's example of overcoming early and often the challenges provides powerful truths for us when we're setting our personal goals. His three most inspiring traits are a strong framework that you can build your health on. Creativity. You've tried and failed to, quote, get in shape in the past. So what's next? Well, what angle have you not explored? The solutions often come from intelligent advisors who can help you to create a new pathway. Second, reality. The biggest lie I hear when I meet people in consultations is when they tell me that they are, quote, good. Recently, someone told me I'm healthy as a horse. And in the next sentence, he detailed the medications his doctor had him on. I'm happy in my body. was the next statement. And in the next sentence, he was explaining how his friends are in better shape and his wife is beautiful, but that's, quote, okay, because he had a lot of money. You're not good, and you're not okay, and you're not doing as well as you want to tell yourself you are. If you're in pain, you're overweight, and you're hiding from reality, you're not good. And you need to take a look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. Finally, we can learn from Churchill grit. I've tried everything, Steve. Now, I'd be a decamillionaire if I had a dollar for every time someone uttered that lie to me. No, you haven't. You gave up. That's the thing you haven't tried, sticking to it until you finally achieved. I'm curious, what quality from Churchill resonates with you? Creativity, reality, or grit? Drop us a comment on social media or shoot us an email. In this episode's Ever Evolving, I want to challenge you to an exercise of awareness. One of the things my clients learn early on is that, quote, good or bad are not emotions, they're judgments. But think about it for a moment. How many times over the years have you used this binary thinking as your way of describing the way you eat? Good, bad. One day, as I was walking out of the gym, I heard a mom teaching her kids this language. No, you ate bad yesterday, so you need to eat good today, she explained. While I understand simplicity is important when we learn and grow, we would do well to expand our vocabulary as we age. Good and bad don't belong in the lexicon of the food conversation. Instead, expanding the understanding of why you eat what you do can lead to insight in how you want to eat in the future. So here's my challenge for you. And this challenge is a very simple one. I want you to write down and make a note every time you say to yourself that you ate good or bad. Now, whether you say it internally or you say it out loud, write it down. After you've created some awareness, you can dig deeper to understanding why you eat the way you do. If you want to learn more, go to becomeanevolvedman.com, where you can download my free guide to never dieting again. In this guide, I walk you through the 6C framework of eating that will help you to move beyond the binary of good or bad, healthy and unhealthy, and get you on a path to a more evolved way of thinking and eating. Evidence based. Did you know that this one thing can make a significant difference in your immune system and lower your risk for Alzheimer's and dementia? Some of the following experts come from David Robson's new book, The Laws of Connection. To listen to our full conversation with David, please go to episode 173, where we talk to David about his great book. In the late 1990s, Sheldon Cohen at Carnegie Mellon University asked 276 participants to give full details of their social ties. They were tested for an existing infection and then were placed in quarantine. In quarantine, they were asked to inhale water droplets that were laced with rhinovirus, the bug behind many coughs and sneezes. Over the following days, many of the participants went on to develop symptoms, but this was significantly less likely if they had a large and diverse range of social connections. A study of 4,000 participants in the English Longitudinal Study of Aging research found that people's scores on the UCLA Loneliness Scale predicted the onset of type 2 diabetes over the following decade. And there were many signs showing that people with stronger social ties and connections had a reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. The takeaway: build your social network. Get quality time with the people you love. While a large network has strong health benefits, the research shows that having a close-knit group of connections and an ever-growing social network can help to support you and build a stronger base of health and wellness. Not sure where to start? Here are 5 simple tips. Listen to our conversation with David in episode 173. 2. Pick up a copy of David's book. In it, you will find that many of the challenges you run into in creating connections are the same as everyone else. In the book, you will learn how to overcome your fears and start to create connections at any age. 3. Reach out and reconnect. Start small by reconnecting with a loved one. Simply say, I'm sorry we've lost contact. I'm working on doing a better job of staying connected with those I love. Can we go grab a lunch? 4. Repair where necessary. The art of the apology is an amazing way to build bridges. If you've done something to push others away, apologize. I'm sorry for what I said. That was insensitive. A great apology won't guarantee you will become reconnected, but you are more likely to do so than by just letting the problem hang out there. Number 5, give genuine feedback. Feedback is a great way to create a quick connection or reconnection. Psychological researchers have estimated that the majority of our thoughts on a daily basis are negative in nature. When you give positive feedback to another person, you boost their day and help them feel better along the way. Everyone can lose weight. We teach you how to do so and keep it off. Are you tired of the yo yo cycle of weight loss followed by even more weight gain? Let's face it, your previous routine didn't work because now you are right back to where you started. Changing your behaviors will help you get started. To see longer results, you got to focus on your lifestyle. But if you want to drop fat, gain muscle, and become the most evolved version of you, then you need a different approach. If you're ready to evolve, go to becomeanevolvedman.com. There, you'll have two options. Number one, you can join our newsletter for free, where you get regular tools, tips, and tricks that will help you evolve. And two, if you're ready to commit to change and make a financial investment in yourself, you can apply for one of our coaching programs. Stop dieting and start evolving today. Well, Bryan Curley, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I've got a question to kick us off. How does one become a meal prep chef?
Good question. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's exciting to be here. Um, how does one become a meal prep chef? Well, I guess it's the current step where I'm at in the long process of learning to cook and coming up working in restaurants and becoming self-employed and now kind of moving things in the direction of an online business. But I got started cooking when I was 8 years old, so I could get out of doing chores in the backyard.
That's a great alternative.
True story. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that mowing the lawn didn't quite inspire me as much as cooking some some interesting recipe I found in the cookbook. So my parents kind of like allowed me to go in that direction, which is nice. Um, but so So today, I kind of split my time between a couple of different things that I do. First of all, I run a meal delivery business here in San Diego, where I cook weekly for my regular customers, and I offer them a different menu every week. And it's designed to be, healthy food that's convenient, fits into their lifestyle. So if they don't want to cook, they can
Mhm.
order from me. And from what I've learned in running this business, from all the recipes that I had to create every week, and making plenty of mistakes in the process, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work when it comes to meal prep. I've kind of collected a lot of that experience, and I'm now compiling it in a way where I can distribute it to my online audience so they can use these things, use these techniques and recipes that I've created over the years and put them to use, learning to cook them to support their own fitness needs, to support their fitness program
I think it's a
in the
great
form of.
idea. Oh, I mean, such a great idea. It's just this beautiful natural evolution, right? I mean, you take something that you're interested and passionate in, then you start to do it for other people, and then you get to the point where you say, "Oh, hey, I want to teach other people how to do this." And I know we're going to get into the, what your online business is and how people can learn from you and grow because, as the old adage goes, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him how to fish, and it sounds like you're doing a little bit of both right now.
Doing both of those.
um, you're you're cooking the fish and giving it to people and
Sure.
teaching them. But I think it's a great evolution, right? Now, I'm curious. So aside from just getting out of the chores and not wanting to mow the lawn, and so being in the kitchen sounded a little bit more interesting. Obviously, something sparked a passion for you in the kitchen. Where did that passion come from?
You ever heard of the chef Emeril Lagasse?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I watched
What
him a
was it?
lot.
Would he yell "bam"? Was that what it
Yeah,
was?
that was his thing.
His saying was "bam," and he would
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
you said it. You nailed it.
yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. I don't want to embarrass myself.
I'll do
No,
it
he used to
poorly
say,
for you. Yeah.
"Do it for me, please."
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to pick up a little pinch of cayenne pepper and he'd take it to his dish as he was finishing it.
And
Uh,
just throw it on there. Bam. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, it was. I mean, it just translated so well to TV, and it got me inspired and fired up about cooking. And I don't know, maybe that was the catalyst to get me into the kitchen. But once
That's
I
cool.
picked up a knife, picked up a saute pan, and started transforming raw ingredients into things with delicious flavors. I was hooked. I I still love it every bit as much as I did then.
That's
And
great.
you know, I've been able to learn from some really talented chefs along the way who've been patient with me, fortunately, uh,
That's always a good thing when you got
teaching me
patient
some of their best
mentors.
tricks. And over the years, I haven't really. I mean, I only remember maybe 25% of the things they taught me, but I've kept a lot of the best things, a lot of the recipes I've enjoyed the most, and I wrote them down in my notes, and I cook a lot of them, regularly now. So it's been kind of a process of filtering out what I like, what works, and leaving the rest behind. But it's enough to inspire me to make new things. It's cool.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Bryan, so I'm curious. It's been estimated that about 40% of Americans don't prepare food at home, and more than half struggle to just cook basic recipes. Now, given that many people are intimidated by the process of getting in the kitchen, what would you recommend people do to get started?
It's a good question. I think if you're gonna take it seriously, then you really gotta you want to prepare yourself. You want to, you don't go into battle without a sword or whatever you need to win a battle. So you need the equipment, you need the right mindset, you need enough time to set aside time to actually do the cooking. When it comes to time, I'll get back to that in a second. But I think the best the, the best way to get started is there's three things that you need to get into place to get started. The first one is, like I said, find the time,
Mm-hmm.
set aside the time. Second is find equipment. You want to make sure you have the right kitchen tools. The third is you got to find some inspiration.
Okay.
And that might come
Interesting.
from different sources. I have to find inspiration all the time, or else I'll run out of ideas. But I mean, I guess starting from the top, finding the time. You see a lot of people who talk about cooking these days. They're going to emphasize the fact that whatever recipe they're sharing, it only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes to cook. Only 10 minutes to cook this dish, and you have dinner. I mean, that's a great idea because we, a lot of us are running short on time,
Mm-hmm.
especially in America. We have hectic schedules, and if you can cook a dish in 10 minutes, then you can spend all that other time you would have spent, doing other things you care about.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. However, I think we got to see the distinction uh, between food that's cooked for convenience, save time, and food that we invest our time into, and then we get to reap the rewards of that in ways of a really memorable meal that tastes delicious that kind of thing that you smell it and you're like, oh, I can't wait to eat that kind of thing
Yeah.
that you look forward to come home to eat. So when I come up with dishes, my first consideration is not like let's make this recipe. Let's make it so people can bang it out in no time at all. That's not really my first consideration. I want to make sure it tastes good, and when you put high quality ingredients, nutritious ingredients together, and you combine them in skillful ways, combine them with other ingredients to complement each other, um, then you got something that's really worth investing time into.
Well, it's enjoying the process too, right? I mean, if you know how to do it, you practice, there's a piece to that process that becomes satisfying in and of itself. And so you I mean, I love that you brought up time, right? We could go down this rabbit hole for probably the next hour and a half just talking about time, because
Right.
time is not what most people think it is, right? Most people don't even spend time where they're at currently at. They're thinking about the next thing. And
Mm,
so if they're thinking about the next thing, they're wasting time with where they're currently at. But
mm,
cooking in and of itself is this immersive process that gets, it's almost meditative, right?
yeah.
And it allows you to focus on creating something for yourself or for others, and that, like you said, tastes delicious, right? So you're not just saying, well, okay, I'm a machine, I've just got to eat something that's convenient so that it fuels me for the next thing, grab and go, right? Not just convenience, but there's more to it.
Hmm. No,
Talk a little bit more about that timepiece. I'm really curious to get more of your thoughts on it.
yeah. So I do a lot of networking on LinkedIn, specifically with a lot of fitness trainers
Mm,
and nutritionists, and uh, a lot of them kind of, I respect the way they feel about food, but a lot of them come at it from the idea of food is
right.
fuel for your body,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in a sense, it is,
Yeah.
but it's also a source of pleasure too,
Hmm.
because it's using your senses, and you're enjoying something that you created using your senses. It's like, I mean, are we machines or are we humans here?
Right.
There's a
Right.
distinction. It's like machines don't feel any pleasure, but part of being a human is participating in something like this. I think the more love you put into the process of cooking, the more pleasure and satisfaction you can get when you consume it. So I can't
Yeah, it's
I
not
can't
just
just
fuel
view
for
it
the
as
body, right?
fuel.
I mean, it's fuel for emotions, it's fuel for connection, it's fuel for so much more. And you're much
Yeah, you're
kinder to my industry, to the fitness people, than I am. I look at most people in the fitness
okay.
industry and just think that they have a disordered way of looking at things, because
Yeah,
they're like, oh, food is fuel. I'm like, okay, robot. Maybe for you because you have a disordered way of eating,
yeah,
but it's not for the rest of us. We
yeah,
love food. We love the taste, the flavor, all of the other things that go with it. And so that
sure.
doesn't mean you have to throw certain things out, right?
No, no, no. You should. When I think about coming up with a recipe, I don't start from the place of what can I take out of
Mm,
food that I like, what can I
yeah.
subtract. I I start from nothing and then I add things. For example, I'll start with a protein,
Hmm.
then consider how I want to cook that protein and the flavors that I want to add to it. And then after that, I'll think to myself, well, what's a starch that goes well with this protein? Then after that, I'll say, what's a healthy vegetable that would complement this dish?
Mm.
If I want to get crazy, I'd be like, what's a sauce that we can throw in here
Yeah,
that
there
would
you
make the
go.
whole
Now we're
thing
talking. Now we're talking.
taste amazing? And people think of sauces, they automatically think, oh, this is going to add so much fat to this dish. I can't have a sauce with my dinner.
Yeah.
But the better you get at cooking, the more options you discover when it comes to healthy sauces that are, you know, based with olive oil and red wine vinegar, for example, or sauces based with Greek yogurt, like tzatziki sauce, cucumbers,
Hmm.
garlic, lemon juice, um, curry sauces, for example, that are the way I make them are based with coconut milk.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, a lot of seasonings and spices. Yeah, you don't have to dismiss sauces as going to ruin your diet. It's gonna add to the whole dish, and as long as the macronutrients are there, as long as you're getting enough protein for building muscle, carbs and fat for energy,
Hmm.
you got a solid dish. So
Yeah.
have fun with it.
Yeah. There's so much variety in there. Okay, so we've talked time, and you're not really building recipes around time. While there's a time factor to it, you also mentioned equipment. Talk about some of the things that if someone gets started, what are the basic pieces of equipment that someone needs in order to meal prep well?
Yeah, you don't really need the high tech gadgets. You can have them if you want. Like it's nice to have a pizza oven in your backyard. I don't have
Sure.
one,
Yeah.
but I would start with professional grade, heavy duty pots and pans,
Okay.
plus small, medium, and large mixing bowls, a good solid cutting board. I use
Hmm.
a plastic cutting board, but a lot of people like wooden cutting boards. I'm gonna have to get a wooden cutting board. And I think most importantly, to cook good food at home, you really want to have a high quality chef's knife because it's a multi purpose tool. The more you use it, the more you get comfortable with it.
Hmm.
Um, chef's knives are an interesting subject. You can spend a lot on a chef's knife or very little. That doesn't matter so much as getting one that you're comfortable with,
Hmm.
that feels good when you grip it with your hand, an appropriate length, not too heavy, not too light.
Hmm.
I use a Japanese style carbon steel knife,
Oh, okay.
made by the Mac knife brand.
Mm.
I've had that thing for 10 years. It's not indestructible, but I do take good care of it. I have not destroyed it. I like the carbon steel knives. They're lightweight and they're responsive to sharpening, and they're they're a good professional knife. So carbon steel is probably the material of knife blade that I would recommend the most. But there's also the stainless steel. There's the German style knives like Henkel and Gustav.
Hmm.
There's the ceramic knives. Those are okay. Um, you could even get like a cheaper knife. You wouldn't get quite as good results, but at least you could throw it in the dishwasher. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about that for just a second. If you get a good knife, it should not go in the dishwasher,
No,
right?
it shouldn't go in the dishwasher.
Why is that?
No, um, it might get chipped. It might get broken,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
it'll rust.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got to be careful. If I don't dry my knife and if it's still got some water on it, then half an hour later it's got rust on it. I got to take it to the knife steel and sand off the rust. I don't like to have to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep your knife clean, keep it dry, and protect it. Put in a little plastic knife case,
Hmm.
keep it safe. Um, that also helps avoid accidents. Um, but yeah, I actually made a whole video on knife skill mastery a few months ago, which sort of goes over some basic knife cuts like dicing, slicing, mincing, chiffonade, and I show the step-by-step process for how to dice an onion, uh, half an inch, uh, half an inch dice, how to slice parsley very thinly, the chiffonade cut, and when my subscribers, my premium subscribers, they get that as like a free gift when they upgrade, so they can learn the step by step process to use a knife to make the dishes, the ingredients of the dishes that I teach them how to make. So
So the
Present
equipment's
work.
important to get, right? And I love that you're referencing the skills that come with it, because I think one of the things that intimidates most people is they just say, "Okay, I have to go cook a recipe," right? Or I've got to make food. And they just go towards the end result without realizing that yes, there's some ingredients, so there's a purchase that has to happen. You've got to have the equipment. You have to make sure that you've carved out some time, but there's a skill set that you're developing over time. And learning how to use the knife properly, learning what ingredients go well together, how to make those ingredients work well together. It's not just, do I follow the recipe perfectly and yay, it turned out amazing, I just did it right the first time. How do people become educated as well as inspired over time?
Well, I went to culinary school, and that worked well for me because I knew I wanted to do it professionally.
Right.
That was my start. Wouldn't recommend that for most people. I think for most people, how you get more skilled at it by first of all, I think you want to not let your expectations get too high. You want to keep your expectations reasonable and not attempt recipes that are um, beyond your level of expertise. I mean, I
So you're
won't stop
saying
you
that
from
you're
trying.
not going to create a Massimo Bottura, um, what was his famous three cheese or five ways of Parmesan or whatever?
Oh,
You're not going to do that in your first attempt, right?
if if you read the recipe and try to recreate the recipe, you you might pull off like a similar recreation of it, but
Okay.
there's no way that Massimo could convey all of the tiny little details and subtleties that go into creating that the way
Right.
it's served in his restaurant. Uh,
Yeah.
can't convey all those things to you through a recipe. Now, if you went to work for him in Italy, he might have the patience to teach you all of the things. You do a better job at it. But a lot of those recipes, I mean, I have these great coffee table books, like giant cookbooks by Michelin 3-star chefs.
Mhm.
They're great to look at. They're
Yeah.
fun to read,
Yeah.
inspiring. But I
Beautiful.
don't try to cook those recipes because I don't know what they know.
Right. Right.
um, and so I think you want to manage your expectations and just find like 2 or 3 good recipes you like to start. Find 2 or 3 good recipes and practice them a few times, get better at them, and then make notes about the recipes and add some modifications and customize them to your tastes. That's
Great
where I would
advice.
start.
Keep track as you go along. Make some notes. Now, I thought this was an interesting statistic. Each month, men on average spend about 19% more than women do dining at restaurants. And this tracks with a lot of conversations I have with guys that I coach. Many men just struggle in the kitchen. They don't. They're not very competent. They don't jump into the kitchen and try things. And so, if there's a guy out there that's listening to this podcast that it says, "Yeah, but," what's the first step that you would tell them to get started?
Well, I would say uh, going off what I just mentioned, get inspired, find a source of recipes, find 2 or 3 you like. You gotta when it comes to like getting ideas for new dishes, you can't just pull it out of thin air. Maybe you can, but you want to find a source.
Mm.
Like cookbooks are a great source. Also, recipe blogs are pretty good too. Um, maybe find some online creator who's cooking the kind of food that you would want to eat, and then just kind of go deep and just find the best of what they're making and try to recreate it at your own place. I have to constantly go back to my cookbooks when I come up with a new idea. Then I'll put a few ideas, some ingredients together that form a whole dish. Um, But if you can get a good source for new recipes, then I would definitely recommend starting with that.
I love that. Having something that you go back to on a regular basis ensures that you've got accountability, really, because it's not like you're going to tell your friend, "Hey, I cooked this meal. Hold me accountable to cooking better meals," right? But if you have something where you can just continually get a drip of information, I think that's a great way to stay accountable to cooking good food, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought this was really interesting as well. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics said that on average, U.S. households spend about 3,400, almost $3,500 on takeout, in restaurant dining, and fast food meals in 2018. Some of the more recent stats show that 74% of people don't feel like cooking, and 51% eat out because they, quote, find it more convenient. Now, for those that are not feeling like cooking or want to just eat out because they find it more convenient, what's your response?
Well, I, I think I'm not going to pretend that cooking is for everyone. I can't sit here
Sure.
and preach that everyone ought to be doing this. It's just not for everyone. Some people have no interest at all, and their time's better spent doing other things. Some people, honestly, I think your clients, for example, like busy corporate executives, entrepreneurs, they might even be better off hiring a personal chef because
Right. Right.
you know um, their time is so valuable that maybe they could delegate that to someone else. But if you're the kind of person who likes to maintain control over what goes into their body and how they fuel their nutrition for fitness, it's a really rewarding feeling to know that you can create something delicious with your own hands out of raw ingredients and with some skill and a bit of time investment. You can you can create meals for yourself and not have to depend on outside sources like food delivery apps or fast food or
Mhm.
those, those roasted chickens from Costco. Being free of that is a really great feeling, and it gives you a feeling of independence and satisfaction, especially when you set aside a couple hours on Sundays to make a recipe, and then there's your portion meals in the fridge waiting for you on Tuesday or Wednesday, nicely stacked up, ready for you to eat. And you just pull it out, maybe reheat it, and enjoy it. It's a great feeling, you
It's
know.
so simple too, right?
Yeah, it doesn't
It's
need to be
so simple,
complicated.
so convenient. I mean,
I,
you
I
can,
should have
yeah,
I
go
should
ahead.
have mentioned this also. Like I see a big distinction between weekly meal prep, especially for fitness, compared to special occasion.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe you and your wife want to do something special. Maybe cook a nice recipe at home for Valentine's Day or your anniversary. Now that's a situation where maybe you break out the big guns
Mm.
and you cook something a bit ambitious. And it's a great opportunity to do something like that. Some real ambitious cooking that you can be proud of and take pictures of and share with your friends. Something memorable. But the type of cooking that I'm talking about is for yeah, it's for the day to day.
Yeah,
It's the
right.
foundation of your nutrition. It's what you depend on. It's not the little extra things that are fun. It's the basic stuff, but it's elevated to the point where it can actually be a really uh, kind of thing that contributes to your quality of life when you do it.
It's pretty simple when you chunk it with something else too. I've found like Sundays, we have the family over for dinner. The kids all come over. We're making a big dinner. If I'm out in the backyard and I'm grilling and I've fired up the grill and I've got meat smoking, we'll go double down on the amount of meat that we're making so that my proteins are ready for the week, right? Or at least for the next few days. And so if I'm grilling up some chicken, or if I'm grilling, smoking some meat, we're making a lot more. And what typically happens is then that's, lunches for my wife and I for the next few days, or the kids will take it home with them. Now, I know you've referenced, Bryan, that we're being waged a war, right, by the processed food industry. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, when you walk down the cereal aisle at the grocery store, maybe you've noticed, wow, all this cereal is really cheap.
Hmm.
All the grass-fed meat in the butchery section really expensive.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but I think that by subsidizing cheap grains like corn, for example, it seems to me that the government might actually not want us to eat these things that are the best for our bodies. And instead, we're sort of being directed towards uh, eating foods that are don't give us hardly any nutrition at all. So
Right.
maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I, I see a little bit of evidence there. Um, when you think about a company like some corporation like Nestle or like Kraft Foods, for example, they make so much money that they can hire the best scientists to create new recipes for them.
Mhm.
And these food scientists have giant laboratories with tons of resources. And what they do is they create new versions of their, I don't know, chocolate syrup, for example. And they'll sit down a whole bunch of test subjects and they'll give them 20 different versions of this new chocolate syrup and they'll ask them which tasted best. And depending on what they choose, and that becomes the new variety that they're going to sell us. So they have so much resources to create these foods that are no good for us, and we have to fight back because it's our bodies that are at stake here. It's our health that's at stake here, and the best ones, the only people that are looking out for our own health is really us. And that's where taking responsibility and taking the initiative to learn how to create flavors that we crave actually becomes important because we're using the same taste buds to taste sugary corn syrup based cereal as we are to taste delicious meal prep using wholesome ingredients that we've made ourselves.
Mhm.
So the more we know how to make our taste buds happier, the more the more ammunition we're going to have in this fight towards um, building better health through eating foods that serve us well. That's how I view it.
So how do people fight back? I'm with you, just so you know. Like, I agree with you 100%. I think there is a war that is being waged on the health of Americans in particular, but we are spreading that to the rest of the world relative to food and taste and flavor and the addictive nature of those foods. So how do we fight back?
It just comes down to making the decision that I'm going to be responsible for what I'm eating, and then not going to stray too far into the territory of junk foods. And I'm going to build a solid foundation of my own nutrition, uh, using my own skills and investing my own time. And I'm not entirely opposed to indulging a little bit. I
Mm.
like cake; it's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
There's there's a time and a place for that. But I really think that when you take the time to make better food on your own, you're much more likely to stick to a healthy nutrition program because you don't feel a need to reward yourself for junk food. If
Yeah.
the healthy meals that you make already taste like a reward.
It's amazing when you cook well and those foods are very health promoting. As you just said, you don't feel like you have to go out and reward yourself because you've done something like, and I don't know if you're like me, but the idea of cheating on a diet, I have my cheat day. That's just
Oh.
ridiculous. What a stupid concept. I wish I could just line up every person in the world that uses that and have somebody come and just punch them in the stomach and say, never say that again. Right? Don't say that. It just eat well. There's
Well,
no
I'd like
such
to
thing
know
as,
what they're forcing themselves to eat for 90% of the time.
oh my gosh,
It's
right?
probably not that good if they feel such a strong need to reward themselves with junk
Yeah.
food.
I can't think of any other relationship in life where you feel like where you're like, yes, I'm in this relationship and it sucks. And so then I have to cheat every once in a while. It's like obviously you don't have a good relationship with your food then.
Yeah, there's a comparison there for sure. Yeah.
So I'm curious, I give our listeners some perspective if you would. I know you've mentioned that there are three things that people need to put into place before they start a meal prep routine. What would you recommend that people get into place before they start prepping?
So, like I briefly ran through before, the first one is find time. And let me give you an idea of what that might look like for someone who works a 9 to 5 job. Um, if you set aside just a couple hours on a Sunday, for example, then you have enough time to create basically a full recipe, maybe even two full recipes of a meal that's going to contain nutritious food that's going to support your fitness routine. And so that's an investment of 2 hours on a Sunday, and then you get back all the time, a lot of the time that you would have spent on putting together dinner or lunch during the week because your meals are already ready.
Yeah.
So find time, set aside some time, and make a commitment to doing that. 2 hours per week, generally on a Sunday, is a good amount of time.
Okay.
And the second one is, like we talked about briefly, find equipment. You want your kitchen to be stocked with good quality gear. It doesn't have to be the best quality, but it should be. Uh, when it comes to pots and pans, I like stainless steel. I like the All Clad brand. I also like the Hexclad brand. Both of those are great. They sell pots and pans in full sets. Um, I've been using a Hexclad 10-inch, 9-inch saute pan for uh, for a while now, and it's really good multi-purpose pan. Before I was using uh, not cast iron, but a carbon steel pan.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But that's a really good option too. It's very heavy and it's good. It's got great heat retention. So you want to get a pan that has good heat retention, which means that it's going to take a little while to heat up, but the pan's going to be heated evenly. So
Mm.
that means when you put some diced onions in the pan, for example, it's not going to get scorched like it would with a thin pan. I hate those thin pans. The cheap aluminum pans are the worst.
They're
Don't use those.
horrible. Yeah, they're horrible.
Uh, but when you use a thick pan, it's the heat retention allows it to get hot, hot, and it retains that heat. So that, for example, when you put a couple fillets of I don't know catfish in a pan, a thick a thick pan that retains heat well is going to stay hot even after you put something piece of food in it. A thin pan, for example, when you put some food in it, it's going to cool down immediately. You won't be able to get the same caramelization or sear on the surface of it as you would with a thick pan. Cast iron, carbon steel, and thick stainless steel pans are a really good investment, and that's where I'd start if you want to take cooking pretty seriously. I would say get a medium-sized stock pot as well for things like boiling pasta. I would get a Dutch oven with a lid, just a good all-purpose pan for making pot roast, for example. A medium-sized saucepan, you need one of those, making sauces. and like I said, general purpose stick saute pan. So yeah, those are the basics of the equipment that I use.
What about a slow cooker? I mean, a lot of people will use Instapots or some sort of slow cooking device to cook their meats or their soups or whatever they're making. Is that something you use?
I don't personally use that. I'm a bit old fashioned when it comes to cooking techniques and equipment.
Okay.
Uh, those are useful though, for sure. The main difference between, from what I found, with a slow cooker like an instant pot compared to a Dutch oven, for example, is that they're not designed to uh, to get hot enough so you can like sear a piece of meat inside the instant pot.
Oh, okay. Yep.
You would never do that with an instant pot. Uh, but with a Dutch oven, it can serve the same purpose. Plus, you can get it nice and hot and caramelize some chunks of beef or like a beef bourguignon. And then after you caramelize those pieces, got it seared and browned, you're gonna add your vegetables, a little bit of wine, some stock, and then that all goes in the same pot, and then it goes right into the oven for 2 hours. You got it delicious beef bourguignon.
Okay.
So slow cookers are good, but you have to skip that step of browning the meat or sweating the vegetables that a stainless steel pan could allow you to do.
Okay. Yeah. Good perspective. Wait, so you've been meal prepping and for yourself and others for a very long time. Where do most people fail when it comes to meal prepping and maintaining a healthy meal prep routine?
I think it sinks too low on their list of priorities.
So
And
it's just
then,
not scheduled. It's not prioritized.
yeah, the people who stick to it have made it a major priority,
Okay.
and they don't let anything else get in the way.
Okay.
I may not be the most disciplined person, but I always do my meal prep at the same time each
Okay.
week.
Fair enough.
And so, after doing it for a few weeks, it just becomes a habit. And then you also get to reap the rewards of not having to cook very much during the middle of the week. You've already done it on Sunday. So yeah, it comes down to making it a habit and making it a part of your life, and just kind of raising your standards a little bit on how you expect to eat and how much you should expect to enjoy your food. So definitely make meal prep a priority if you can. Uh, you'll you'll appreciate it after you've done it for a while, and it just becomes normal.
There's a big difference in the quality. You also make food that's very beautiful. Do you believe the old adage that you eat with your eyes first?
Yeah, I think you do actually. I think so.
So, how can people take that and make food that looks as appealing as it tastes?
I guess, geez, that one's a little bit hard to break down because it I've sort of developed that feel over a long time. Um, cooking at fine dining restaurants, plating food, that's obviously it's a big priority. And when you're plating a plate of food that costs $40, $50, it's got to look pretty.
Yeah.
Um, I guess on a basic level, when you're plating a meal, maybe start with your rice or your potatoes or your pasta on the bottom,
Okay.
and then put the meat you prepared on the top. Maybe you slice the meat. Maybe you serve it whole, put that on top, and then top it with some vegetables. If I do a sauce, then most of the time I portion the sauce into little containers on the side with a lid, and I'll include that in there. It's difficult to describe. I think the best way is maybe to check out my website and have a
I
look at
think I think you're doing a
the
good
stuff
job
that.
because I'm salivating here as you're talking about it, and I'm envisioning each one of those things going on the
Yeah.
plate. Uh,
So
but there is a thought process to it, right? And that it's not just okay, take that, throw it on there, and then shove that down the mouth. or shove that down the throat so that we get fuel, right? There's a thought process to say, hey, how can I make this thing look good so that I want to eat more of it, right?
I don't think it's a thought process. There's not a single thought that goes through my head when I consider how I'm gonna make it
Okay.
look. It at this point it's become instinctive.
For you,
It's
it's
just
instinctive, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's something
One
you've
thing you
done
do
so
want to
many times.
consider is it's going to make your food look much more attractive if you have a variety of colors
Oh,
in the
interesting.
dish.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Okay.
Colors is important.
Yeah.
One time I accidentally made a dish of I think it was like a roasted halibut with cauliflower rice and some white basmati rice,
Mhm.
fish, vegetable, um, starch. So just picture those three on the plate. You see a problem. They're all white.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't look the same color.
Bland.
Would you rather eat something that has like a white fish, a white vegetable, and a white starch, or would you rather eat something that has I don't know, bright green, blanched asparagus, some bright pink pickled onions, maybe red marinara sauce, and like a nice brown piece of meat. When you have those color contrasts all together on the same plate, it's much more interesting, and it encourages you to eat it much more. It's just on an instinctive level, not because it makes any more sense. It just looks better,
Yeah.
and you want to eat
Well,
it.
and if you look at your website, I mean, you have these pictures of beautiful food on there. I mean, earlier as I was scrolling through, I see this bright orange, sweet potato yam, topped with the meat, and then some green over on the side. You've got these beautiful, beautiful dishes. They make you salivate. They make you want to eat, and I think it's so important that the visual is there so that we don't like you said we're not getting bored by the all white
Yeah, don't make that mistake
plate
that
of
I made.
meals, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just try to visualize it in your head. How's it going to look?
So I'm curious. It's been estimated that Americans on average spend about $12 per meal or excuse me, save about $12 per meal by cooking at home. If you take that and you say, okay, one meal per day, well, that could equate to almost $4,400 in savings per year, just for one person. So, aside from saving money, what are some of the other benefits that people can have by prepping meals at home?
I think you're able to make the kind of modifications and customizations when you cook meals in your own kitchen that a restaurant or a grocery store or any other place you would get food wouldn't be able to make for you. So, for example, if you if you didn't like the certain seasoning that that you get from a dish you normally get at a restaurant, being able to cook that dish at home with a different seasoning blend
Mm,
makes it your own. You're not you're not eating someone else's food anymore. You're eating your own food.
mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever tried one of those online meal delivery services where you
Yeah,
can
a
order
couple
like a
times.
fully made meal delivered to you.
Yep.
Um, those are cool, but if you really try to use their app to make all the modifications that you need to make, it's a real headache.
Yeah.
So, say for example, you're on an exercise plan and you've been making good progress, and your uh, your trainer says you need to be eating more protein instead of I don't know, instead of 140 grams of protein per day, you now need to be eating 170 grams of protein, for example. Um, Being able to cook your own meals and put the ingredients together in the quantities that your body needs allows you to take back control and feel like you have independence to be able to feed yourself in exactly the way that your body needs to be fed. That's I think you mentioned the expense
Mhm.
thing. That's very important too. But just having that degree of control over what goes in your body, it's really makes a difference.
Well, it's a really simple shift too, right? I mean, when you talk about going from, let's say, 140 grams to 170 grams, you're talking about probably a 5 to 6 ounce chicken breast addition that you're just adding to your day, which you can do in a very simple way. It's very cost effective. You can chop that up, you can spread it across 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals, however you want to do it. And now automatically you're achieving the macronutrient profile that you need in order to, to achieve your goal. And I don't know if you've seen this scenario, but I have seen it for the past 20 plus years. We walk into any gym in America, you see the same guys that are in the gym. They're doing the same workouts. They've got the same big sweat stains going down. They've got the same aggressive mentality. They're working out really hard, and yet they never change how they look. The fastest way to see change is to dial in your nutrition and making sure that the nutrition matches what your body's needs are. Given that, what does meal prep have to do with achieving your fitness goals?
Well, I think it's the foundation of how your body is getting the nutrients it needs. It's uh, it's not going to be every meal. Obviously, it's not going to be all your meals. Like for example, I don't think about meal prep like this. I tried that. I tried making egg dishes for breakfast meal prep. It
Mm,
doesn't work because you want a hot breakfast, and if you reheat a quiche, it just tastes kind of gross.
yeah.
But for lunch and for dinner, meal prep fits right in.
Mhm.
A healthy dish for meal prep is definitely the answer for lunch and for dinner. And whether you're going to eat it at home or take it with you to work, uh, it makes a lot of sense to get that dialed in, make it a part of your week. Um, and everyone's got those times, maybe every day, when you're in a situation where you have to eat something that's not the best for you. Maybe you're on a business trip and you go with people from work out to dinner to a restaurant that's maybe the healthiest options aren't on the menu,
Mhm.
and you eat something that is probably not what your body needs. That's normal. That happens.
Yeah.
You don't need to beat yourself up about that. The reason why is because you're not always doing that. You're not always forced to be in those positions where you can't eat what you need. That's only sometimes. But like I said, the foundation of what you're eating, it's got to be dialed in so that once you're done eating the junk food, you go back the next day to eating the good stuff, and you continue that good habit because you know you the foundation of your nutrition is not going to be bad food. It's going to be the good food.
Yeah.
So it sort of helps you make up for the times when you make mistakes.
Or when you just start traveling, like you said, I think that's an important thing. I mean, consistency is king when it comes to getting results. And so if you consistently have that meal prep, habit, then when you go out to eat, or let's say that you eat something that might not be as good for your body, then it doesn't matter because you've got that foundation. Simplicity is key, and learning how to do this the right way is critical. Now, I know you have a couple of different options for people when it comes to learning how to meal prep. Um, you have a newsletter that goes out, your simple newsletter, and simple is an acronym, right?
Yeah, simple stands for Science Integrated Meal Prep Lab.
So there's no e on the end, right?
Just no E. Should
SIMPL,
mention that. Yeah,
right? Yeah.
SIMPL. Simple.
What can people expect if they sign up for your newsletter? What are they getting?
Well, what I try to do with the simple newsletter is convey the techniques and kitchen tips and sometimes the shortcuts and the recipes that I've collected over my 20-year career of professional cooking. I try to convey it in the form of brand new, high protein meal prep entree that I'm presenting for them to look into. And so I publish basically every week. I make a new one. It might be a chicken recipe or a beef recipe or salmon or pork or cod, and I craft it to include vegetable, a starch, sometimes a sauce. And as I'm creating it, I'm breaking down the steps of the process on video. So, so every week on Saturday morning, my subscribers get this dish, the description of it, and kind of like a backstory of how I came up with it, and they can check it out and see if it's right for them. They want to make it this week. What they can do is they have the option of becoming a premium subscriber to my newsletter, and when they do that, they get the entire recipe along with a step-by-step cooking video, so they can learn how to make it at home. And one of people's favorite things about it is I also include for premium subscribers the online links for all the ingredients to the weekly recipe so that they can click and order them on Amazon Fresh. That way, when they're ready to cook it, they can have they can have the ingredients delivered right to their house, so they don't have to go to the grocery store to get the
That's such a
ingredients. It's
great
right there
idea.
for them.
I mean, just having the ability to click and there it is, right? You're ready to go. If you've got all of your other tools and equipment ready, then you've just made the process so simple for people.
Yeah, the more barriers we can knock down, the easier it is to make it a habit. The more what's it called, friction points we can get rid
Yep.
of,
Yep.
the quicker the process becomes. So that's one of the things I've tried to do with this. And so people, the subscribers of the Simple Insider newsletter, is what the premium subscription is called, Simple Insider. They can skip a lot of the steps of this process. They don't have to open up a cookbook and come up with an idea for what they're going to cook.
Just right there
They
for them.
they don't
Yeah.
have to wonder if it's the right macros for them
Yeah.
because the
Okay.
macronutrient count is included with each of the recipes. So
Wow.
if they need to be eating less calories, then make like a three-quarters of the recipe, and you're right there. So it's very helpful for a lot of people, and the feedback I've gotten so far has been awesome. I've been seeing the pictures of the dishes that my subscribers have recreated. I look at them like, hey, that looks like my dish. You did it your way.
Very cool.
It's a lot of fun. So it's
Every gym goer should be subscribed to the premium. It sounds like, because I mean this is a way to figure out how to get your macronutrients dialed in,
yeah,
and do it in a way that it's going to be the healthiest for you. I mean,
sure.
I don't know about others people, but I've got several foods I don't like, but I also have foods that I can't eat. I'm allergic to soy. And so that significantly limits what I can eat when I go out. And so I make most of my food at home. And it's a massive game changer for me because I don't have to worry about ingredients going into my food that I'm allergic to or that I have an intolerance to. So
Sure.
big difference when you start making your food on your own. With that said, I'm curious because like I'm not a big fan of eating foods that I don't like. I mean, I tried forcing myself to eat broccoli for years, and I'm just done with it. I I get the fiber and the nutrients from other foods because I just absolutely hate the taste of it. So I'm curious, do you personally have any no-go foods where you're like, yep, did it, tried it, done, never doing that again?
I kind of get into beef liver.
Oh, okay.
I tried. I got some really high quality beef liver
Yeah.
and nice hot pan, seasoned it with salt and pepper,
Mhm.
seared it, a little bit of butter, put it on a plate, and I started eating it. And, oh man, can't do it.
So what you're saying is you're not going to become the new Liver King.
I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Okay. What about your top five favorite foods? What would they be?
Um, my favorite foods.
Or you could say dishes. I mean, for a guy like you, it's probably got to be a little more complex.
I don't really think of food in that way. I think of, yeah, I guess as far as ingredients go, yeah, I love pasta.
Okay.
Pasta's a magical food. Um, beef. Been cooking a lot of beef lately. That seems to be it's always been- I live in this neighborhood where a lot of people have moved in recently and they have a lot of money and they like to
Uh,
show off and they
okay.
drive their Lamborghinis down the street very fast. Lamborghinis are loud.
Yeah, that's what that noise was in the coffee shop
Yeah.
there. That's
What was
fun.
I saying? Yeah, I like
So
beef.
beef, yeah, pasta, beef. Okay.
Oh, so recently I actually decided I'm gonna upgrade my standard of meat
Okay.
that I'm eating. Previously, I was eating a lot of meat from Costco. It's all right, but I wanted to get the best quality meat, and so I subscribed to Butcher Box.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Have you ever used that?
No, I've been curious about it. What do you think?
Oh, Butcher Box is great because they have so many different varieties. They have like beef, chicken, pork. They have like salmon. Thank you. And it's all like the best quality stuff. The wild salmon, not
Okay.
farm raised salmon. It's grass fed beef, not grain fed beef. But you would really hate the difference.
I'll have to give it
Um,
a try.
I found after trying this, the grass fed beef has like a more specific flavor.
Hmm.
It's got more like it's like a wild animal flavor
Yeah.
than
Yeah. It's a little more
regular beef
gamey.
is. Yeah, it is. So
Yeah.
I've been eating a lot of that. Let's see. Yeah, the wild sockeye salmon is delicious.
Okay.
It seems to be a lot leaner. Tastes a lot leaner than farm raised salmon,
Mm.
but also I think it's more protein too.
Yeah.
So I try when I use leaner fish and leaner meats in a recipe. I generally try to include other ingredients that are more rich in flavor,
Hmm.
kind of compensate for that. Because if you pair a lean protein with starch or a vegetable that doesn't have much fat in it, you're still gonna kind of uh, feel a little bit hungry after you finish eating.
Yeah. You won't be as satisfied. Right.
Yeah. So when you think about fat in food, obviously some are better than others. You know, you don't want to include a lot of like bad quality oils, like maybe avoid vegetable oil if you can.
Hmm.
And get your fats from really high quality sources. Like beef fat is really good.
Hmm.
Um, Grass fed butter is one I like a lot,
Hmm.
and olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Um, Coconut milk's really good too. So, so when you think about fat in meal prep, you don't want to just like avoid it entirely. You just want to be smart with the sources that you're
Yeah. Get
using.
some stuff that's going to taste good. I had a client asking me
Yeah.
because, there's so much about vegetable oils and how horrible they are for you out there. And so I had a client say, well, do not eat these because they're so bad for you? I'm like, well, there's some debate about how bad they are. I don't eat them because I hate the flavor. Like I would much rather get my fat from something that gives me great flavor. I also
Great flavor.
believe, based on what I've read, and not just the influencer space, that there's a lot more health benefits to some other fats rather than just you don't need to just go to vegetable oil. I think there's a lot of downsides there.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you don't feel quite as good after eating
Yeah,
something that's cooked in a lot of vegetable oil
right.
compared to something that's made with a better source of fat.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, being conscious of how you feel after you eat is a really good information point when it comes to like deciding, is this good for my body? Am I doing the right thing? You just kind of tune into your digestion and your energy levels and that'll give you a really good direction for how you're feeding yourself, and if you need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, great point. So Bryan, final question for you. As we're coming to wrap up here, having been in the industry for as long as you have, I'm curious, what's one thing that you used to believe that you no longer do?
Well, I think when I was younger, when it came to subjects like what we're talking about, I think I was more inclined to try to make people agree with me and believe the same things as
Mm,
me. And I still have the tendency to think that I'm a know-it-all, but I'm a little bit more conscious of the fact now that I don't know it all. And so because of that, I've kind of made an effort to stay in my lane,
mm,
so to speak. And when it comes to things like nutrition and eating, the truth is, I'm not a nutritionist. I have no certification in that, but I am a chef, and there are certain things that I can speak about from a position of being an expert. There's other things that I'm better off avoiding. So, so when I've posted things and when I've given people advice, it always comes from trying to be conscious of I may not know exactly everything there is not to know about this subject, and I have to inform people from the information that I know, which I am an expert about. And
mm.
having a cooking background, professional cooking, having done it for 20 years, there's some things I'm pretty good at. I know how to make something taste good. I know how to make it look appealing. And I can put together a recipe that has a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat, calories in a way that's accurate. And those are the things that I'm sharing with people going forward.
I love that. That's great. Well, Bryan Curley, thanks again for coming on. For people who want to sign up for the Simple newsletter, where do we want them to go?
So the best place to start is to check out my website where I post all of my new recipes. You can check it out at cooksimple.beehive.com, and I'll send you a link to that. You can post it
Yep.
in the notes there, and that'd be the best place to start. You can read about what I'm up to, what I'm cooking, and subscribe to that. You'll get a new dish in your inbox every Saturday. The full recipe isn't included for the free version, but it is for the paid version, which is only $19 a month. You can cancel anytime, and you also get a free 1 month subscription. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. Um, and that's the best place to start. And also, if you're on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. I post about a lot about my opinions on food and some of my thoughts and funny things that happen along the way. And I am definitely one of the more opinionated people on LinkedIn. So maybe not for everyone, but if you like it, check it out.
I love your content. I mean, that's how you and I got connected. I sort of following your content, and then through some email sequencing, we started conversing about having you on the podcast. And I really appreciate the content. I tend to be fairly opinionated myself, and I
Yeah, I
always
think
like
we should be
to
that way.
connect people that have opinions, especially if they might be a little bit different than mine, because I think that's where we grow from. So
Sure.
we will put the links to all of those things in the notes. And once again, Bryan Curley, thanks again for coming on. Make sure that people know how
Thanks so
to
much for having
find
me.
you. And great talking with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your personal evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session. to keep you moving forward on your path of personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get great guests and provide you with the best wisdom for your daily life. Until next time, keep evolving.